Have you ever heard of a flood made entirely of beer? It sounds like a party, right? Well, in 1814, it was a real-life nightmare. This is the unbelievable and tragic story of the Great London Beer Flood. Our story begins on October 17, 1814, in a poor, overcrowded London neighborhood called St. Giles. This area was home to the massive Meux and Company Brewery, one of the largest in the city. Imagine giant wooden vats, some as tall as 3-story buildings, filled to the brim with fermenting porter, a dark, strong beer very popular at the time. These vats were so huge they were held together by massive iron hoops, each one under immense pressure from the hundreds of thousands of gallons of liquid inside. On that fateful afternoon, a brewery worker noticed something alarming. One of the huge iron hoops around a 22-foot high fermentation tank had slipped. This wasn't entirely unusual. These hoops sometimes needed adjustment. He reported it to his superior, who told him not to worry and that it would be fixed later. This small decision would have catastrophic consequences. Just an hour later, at around 5:30 p.m., that weakened iron hoop snapped. The sound was like a gunshot echoing through the brewery. Without the hoop's support, the immense pressure of the fermenting beer instantly blew the massive vat apart. Over 320,000 gallons of porter erupted outwards with incredible force. But the disaster didn't stop there. This initial explosion created a domino effect, smashing into the other giant vats in the brewery. One after another they burst, releasing their contents. In a matter of moments, a staggering 1.5 million liters of beer were unleashed. This wasn't just a trickle, it was a tidal wave. 15-foot high tsunami of dark, sticky porter crashed out of the brewery walls and into the surrounding streets of St. Giles. The neighborhood was a maze of rundown tenements and crowded cellars where entire families lived. The force of the wave was devastating. It smashed through the flimsy walls of 2 houses, reducing them to rubble instantly. People were caught completely off guard. Imagine the scene. A torrent of dark, frothy liquid, mixed with splintered wood and debris, sweeping through the narrow streets. The beer flooded into the basements and cellars, where many of the area's poorest residents lived. People were either crushed by the collapsing buildings or drowned in the thick, viscous river of alcohol. The sticky nature of the porter made escape even more difficult, trapping victims in the rising flood. In the immediate aftermath, chaos reigned. The air was thick with the smell of beer and the screams of the injured. Survivors scrambled through the wreckage trying to find loved ones. Tragically, 8 people lost their lives. One of the victims was a young girl named Hannah Bamfield, who was having tea with her mother when the wave hit. Others were mourners at an Irish wake being held in a cellar who were suddenly swamped by the flood. The stories that emerged were bizarre. Some people reportedly collected the beer in any container they could find, turning a disaster scene into a strange, grim party. There were even rumors, though likely exaggerated, that some people died from alcohol poisoning after drinking too much of the free-flowing beer. So what happened to the brewery? Surely they were held responsible for this catastrophic failure. The company was taken to court, facing lawsuits from the families of the victims who had lost everything. But the outcome was shocking. The jury and the judge ruled the entire incident to be an act of God. They decided it was an unavoidable accident, something no one could have predicted or prevented. The Meux and Company Brewery was completely acquitted of any wrongdoing and didn't have to pay a single penny in compensation to the devastated families. The government did eventually step in to offer some financial relief, but it was a far cry from true justice. The London beer flood remains one of history's strangest and most tragic industrial accidents. It's a powerful reminder of how quickly life can change, and a bizarre footnote in the story of London, a city literally flooded by beer. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next dive into the weird and wonderful corners of history. See you next time.